Hey guys, Mike here. In this video, I'm going to explain where's the best place to stand when fighting any monster in Monster Hunter. The best place to stand is closest to the accessible parts that you can attack. Ideally, it's the weak point, but that's not always the case. For a lot of brute wyverns, it's just not possible with some weapons. So you want access to the legs. The second criteria is what is the safest place. So you have to know the monster's moveset. So let's just go over the different types of attacks that monsters do. So the first is a charge, which is in a straight line where the monster's facing. It actually be like this. Next is a bite, usually very fast. Next are various wide frontal cleaves. This is typically for elder dragons that stand on 4 legs. They will claw swipe, and the danger zone is right in front. The reason these moves are pretty devastating because they're just so fast, especially when enraged. We have this version of wide frontal cleaves, usually breath attacks. We have half cleaves, either on the left or on the right. We have out cleaves, so it means get out in order to be. Usually it can be a circle like Nargacuga's tailspin, or it can be more consolidated to the monster's hitbox like a Rathalos stomp. So the danger zone would be the actual body of the Rathalos. We have some rare cleaves where the safe zone is actually in the center. For example, Zinogre's spin. They're actually pretty rare. We have hip checks. Very fast. Usually it doesn't hit that far, but it's very wide. And that's pretty much all the different types of cleaves that the monster can attack with. So your goal as a hunter is to analyze the monster, determine which attacks that the monster can do of those various types of cleaves, and identify a default save spot that you can always return to after every monster attack. Now, for lower level monsters, usually there's a big weakness that the monster has that you can just stand somewhere and it's pretty much safe. But for harder monsters, especially elder dragons, they usually have an attack that can cleave any direction. So there isn't really a 100% safe spot for those higher tier monsters. And I would say anything stronger than Rathalos. So you don't want to stand too far out unless you're ranged, because if you're too far out and you're melee and you have to run into the monster, that's literally time wasted to get here. So you're not doing enough damage, and 2, you might not even get here in time before the monster starts its next attack. So you definitely don't want to stand out here. And again, that breaks the first rule. You want to have easy access to the places that you're trying to hit on the monster, so the legs or the head. I would not stand right in front of the monster. There's 2 reasons for that. The first reason is because a lot of the monster attacks come from its head and are directed from a back to front motion. So by standing here, if you're trying to strafe and get to the left or right, it's more dicey, especially for monsters like Rajang with his Dempsey roll. That move comes out so fast, and if you're caught standing in front and you don't have any type of guard capabilities, then you're just going to get hit. The only exception is, like I said, if you have guard capabilities, then it is generally a good idea to stand in front. But another reason I wouldn't stand here is because you're not making the monster move. Now, what do I mean by that? So if I just stand here, he's just going to start attacking me. But if I stand here, for example, then the monster is going to take time to face me, turn and face me, and that's time I could be spending attacking the monster or playing defensively and getting ready for the next monster attack. So by buying yourself time by slightly standing not right in front, you are buying yourself more time for either offense or defense. So for wyverns with 2 legs, your default position should be over here to the left or right. Now for older games like 4th generation games, you pretty much can't react to the startups on some of the moves for the monsters. There's actually a correct answer of where to stand on the left or right. For example, Yan Kutku, you always want to be standing on the right because he will always do his tail whip to the left. And the startup on that is, I'm pretty sure you can't react to it with the human reaction time. So you always want to stand on the right. But for 5th generation, monsters can attack left or right in both directions, so it doesn't really matter that much. Now for brute wyverns, you typically want to stand between its legs, especially if you have a short weapon. If you have a short weapon like hammer or sword and shield, you are not hitting the monster's head. I don't care what you say, you're not going to hit a Deviljho's head or even a Anjanath's head with those short weapons. So you always want to be attacking the legs. And the nice thing too is that fills the second criteria because it's also a safe spot. Typically Deviljho, it's extremely dangerous to be standing in front of a Deviljho, especially if you don't have good guard capabilities. But it's actually pretty safe to stand between the Deviljho's legs. If he tries to stomp on you, do left-right cleaves, you can always just strafe left and right. You just dance around his legs. You don't have to move that much. So to dodge those attacks is actually pretty straightforward and simple. But if you're dodging all the wide swings that a Deviljho has by standing out in front of it, like over here, you're going to have a bad time. So brute wyverns, I would stand by the legs, between the legs. You tenderize the legs, and it actually does a lot of damage once you tenderize them. Some monsters, once you break them, the hit zone values become even better in your favor. Brachydios, I always just hit the legs as sword and shield. Elder dragons. Elder dragons, typically their front legs are weak points. So the thing about elder dragons, they have 4 legs and the head is usually elevated so you can't really reach it unless you have a large enough weapon. But another thing about elder dragons too is their frontal cleaves are extremely dangerous. They're very fast, they do a lot of damage. And again, if you don't have guarding capabilities, you do not really want to be standing directly in front of an elder dragon, especially like Teostra. So for elder dragons, I think it's actually better to stay in front, but take a more flank position on the left or right. That way you have access to the front legs, and if you have an opportunity to hit the head, hit and run and get a hit on the head, you still don't have to run that far. Usually the body or the back legs are not ideal targets. Of course, the exception maybe like Val-Hazak, its stomach is a weak point, but for Teostra, the stomach is not a weak point. In fact, you don't want to be hitting Teostra's stomach at all. Leviathans aren't really in 5th generation. Maybe I'll cover Leviathans in a different video. We'll see. If your primary mode of defense is dodging, I would stand to the side of the head. For Elder Dragons, slightly even more to the side. For Flying Wyverns, Bird Wyverns, anything with 2 legs, stand more in front. For Brute Wyverns, I would move more towards the center to get access to the legs, as well as dodge its various attacks. Again, as a melee, I would not stand this far out. You're going to be running late for every single attack, and your DPS is going to suck. There are exceptions, like Nargacuga, for example. If you don't have guarding capabilities, you may want to stand a little farther out to respect his Tailspin, Circular Cleave in the middle. Again, you have to decide on a monster by monster basis, but these are the general places that you should be standing to maximize both offense and defense.